Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. This is our sixth episode in the series on how to lead from anywhere. I don't think anything could be more important than knowing how to lead from anywhere, actually, in the world we're in today. It's an absolutely core skill, and since people don't understand the human side of business, they know everything about their products, the technologies, their numbers, but they just don't know the human side. So we're trying to share it with you because belonging is very human. Now, how do you create a sense of belonging? Terry and I have done series on belonging. We did a very long series on just belonging. Remember that, Terry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good one. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. Go back and look at all those norms. When you can get people feeling like they belong, it is going to create some magic in your atmosphere where people really are creative. They're excited to be there every day. They're not coming in just dreading every Monday. It's
Yeah.
really a cool environment to work in.
Yeah. It's one you want to go to.
Yeah.
And so in the episodes that preceded this, we laid out all the foundational things that have to be there before belonging can occur. You can't have a sense of belonging if the individuals feel no one cares about them. You're never going to have it. If they don't know where the company's going, they don't know what they're responsible for, they're never going to have a sense of belonging. If they don't have a sense of psychological safety and they don't think there's transparency and all the other things that create a safe culture, they're never going to have a sense of belonging. So those have already occurred if you go back to those other episodes. And now we get here, which is how do you actually create this sense of belonging, especially when you have people who are remote to you? You're leading from anywhere. And I think that's a very fundamental question. So we'll just get right into it. Number one, acceptance, right? People should be
Yeah,
able to bring their whole self to work, right, Tara? No question.
that's right. Without question. And in order for people to feel like they can bring their whole self to work, they have to know that their basic needs are met. So they have to trust you. They have to know which direction the organization is going in. They've got to know their roles and responsibilities. All of those things that we've talked about many times have to be in place in order for people to start to feel like they're being accepted just for who they are. They don't have to perform a certain way. They don't have to do things and be like everybody else. They don't
Yeah, I
have
don't
to
have to fake it.
conform. Yeah, they don't have to conform and try to fit in like everybody else. They can just be who they are naturally and be accepted just for who they are. That is so important. And especially now in this world in which we live, where, it's not okay to have different opinions, where people literally get into heated arguments and, have died over disagreements. This is a place where you want to make people feel like I can have my opinion and I can be accepted just for who I am. I don't have to have the same opinion as everybody else.
Yeah. And so, that's a great norm. Bring your whole self to work. That could be the norm that you spread throughout the company. But this matters. So if you want to create a sense of belonging amongst all the remote people, and belonging is not an emotion, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that you get from the vibe you pick up from everybody in the place that, wow, I think I could belong here. And helpfulness. Now, when
Yeah.
people help one another and succeed together, that help that you get to help you succeed starts to deepen your sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And it's super important, right? You got to help one another because everybody encounters struggles. Everybody.
Everybody. I have always, it just kind of makes me cringe when people say, well, that's not my job. And they say, well,
Yeah.
if this person would just do their job, then I could just do my job.
Yeah.
It has always made me cringe when I hear people say that, because I'm just kind of a naturally helpful person.
Oh, me too.
This one is very easy for me. I will pitch in and help. I will ask questions about things that have nothing to do with what I'm working on, just out of pure curiosity. A lot of times I'll help just so that I can learn, so that I can see something different, experience something different, learn something different. I'm always looking to learn something new. So for me, this kind of comes naturally. But when you have that kind of an attitude that, that's not my job, you really pigeonhole yourself into this narrow space of what you have defined as your responsibility. But when you take a bigger approach and you see that if I help somebody else succeed, then we're succeeding together. And there are going to always be times, there's without fail a time when you're going to need help. You're going to
Oh,
need
yeah.
somebody
What
to
goes
pitch
around
in
comes
and do
around.
something. That's right. You're going to need help with somebody doing something that's not their job to help you do your job. And so you want to sow those good seeds of being helpful and kind to others and seeing that this is about we and not just me.
Yep. And this is a great norm. Pitch in to help even when it's not your job. That means when the new person starts, maybe they're a month into the job, maybe a week, whatever, you go over and say, hey, you struggling with anything? Can I help you with something? I know my way around. I can introduce you to people. It can be as simple as that, where you could
Yeah,
just reach out. You don't have to see them struggling to inquire and see if they need help because they may not be comfortable asking.
that's right.
And then support, you've got to have each other's back. It's a little different than help. And I've seen so many times where, a group of people get together and they agree the path forward should be this, let's do this. And then they go to a meeting and there's some higher up people there. And one of the people says, we met on this, we talked about it, here's what we think. And they react negatively to it. And nobody who was before a proponent of this steps in to help the poor person. To say, no, 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 we all met, we agreed, this is why we felt this way. They let them just swing there. I've seen that any number of times in companies. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
You got to support your coworker, even when it may be uncomfortable to do so. You got to have each other's back. That's the true sense of belonging, when they're not going to let you go down.
right. Having that person that you feel like has your back, you definitely want to know that your manager has your back.
Oh, big time. God.
But you also need to have people on your team that you feel like, if I'm ever in a pinch or if I ever need support, I know that I can turn to this person and they will support me. So you want to create that environment where people feel like we need to support each other, where it's not every man for himself. And I'll step on you to get to where I'm trying to go. You have to really squash that thinking and make sure that people feel like, you know what, my team really does support me. They're there for me when I need help, when it's uncomfortable, when it's hard. People
Yeah.
still just take a little bit of time, and that little bit of kindness that we show to others will absolutely come back to us when we need it.
Yeah. And it's most important for the boss to have your back, although all the coworkers should, but the boss has got to
Yes,
support you. Maybe the people above don't understand all the great stuff you've done, and they've got to fight for you to make sure you get the proper recognition. Maybe you get the proper reward. That's what having someone's back is. It's
right.
all about that, even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe they didn't do their job along the way as a boss to sing your praises. When the time comes, they better be there and have your back because you've been working hard, you've been loyal, you did everything you needed to do. And that doesn't always happen in companies.
Very true.
Now, friendship, clearly this is super important. Um, the Gallup 12, they came away with a set of things that really matters. And one of the questions
Yeah.
always was, I have a best friend at work, and you could rate it on a scale. The people who responded they had a best friend at work were 7 times as likely to be engaged in those studies. And now, so if you want a real sense of belonging, it's great to create an environment where friendships can develop. You got to encourage people to seek out personal connections with one another. Set up shared activities where people might get to know that somebody has a common interest with them. And that opens a door to maybe going beyond being a coworker to a friend. And friendships are usually productive in the workplace, usually productive.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
This is a very underrated activity. People feel like, well, I don't have to be friends with my coworkers. I'm here to work, that
Yeah,
kind of thinking.
this is work.
This is work. We don't have to be friends. I'm not saying that you have to be in love with everyone, but you
Yeah,
do need to have a friend. You need to have somebody at the workplace that understands the work. They understand what you do. They have a base of context so that as you're having conversations with that person, you may need to vent because we all have things that we need to vent about.
right. A
It's just a
confidant.
part of being a human. You have to have those human connections. There's just no way around it. If you want to have a successful company, the people have to make those human connections where they feel like they have friendships, where they can have those conversations that maybe they can't have with their manager. Maybe they can't have that conversation with their spouse at home because their spouse doesn't understand all the intricacies, I can't say the word, of work,
Yeah.
but they don't know all those little details, all those little things
Right.
that make this situation what it is.
All the
Whereas when you
challenges.
have a friend at work, your friend gets it. Your friend understands it because they are there. They are experiencing the same things, all those little things that just kind of are annoying that have built up over time. When you've got a friend at work, that person gets it right off the bat. So you
Yeah.
need people to have those kinds of relationships because remember, we are human first, worker second. So you want to create that atmosphere where people can be friends and they feel like, somebody has my back, but I also have a connection with people.
Yeah. And this is about creating an environment where they do bring their whole self to work. And so
Right.
maybe on Slack or whatever tool you use for the social interaction, you have different groups, the cooking group, the history group, whatever it is. And people go to the cooking group and find out, oh, I didn't know so and so loves cooking. Wow, that's incredible. I love that recipe. Now they have some shared interest, and that creates an open doorway for a friendship to develop. And so these things are important. And the boss who's leading from anywhere needs to create that environment where the friendships amongst these people who are working remote from one another can start to develop. It's really important because that's going to deepen this sense of belonging tremendously.
Right.
And inclusion, people always talk about inclusion. Certainly inclusion, it's everyone's job. It's everyone's job to make sure no one feels left out. And so people do intentionally leave people out sometimes because maybe they
Right.
rub them the wrong way and they go off and do something and leave them out. But it could be as simple as, in a meeting where you're discussing something, maybe they didn't speak up, solicit their ideas and insights so they feel part of it.
Yeah. The
And
worst thing you
that's
can do
important.
is have a clique in your organization where if people are not in the in crowd, then they get left out of everything. They don't get the best opportunities. They don't get the best
The
assignments.
worst.
They don't get the exposure that they need. They don't get all the information that they need. It is absolutely a cancer in your organization if you allow that type of
100%.
behavior. You cannot do it. It's easy to make friends with people that are like you, but you have to be intentional about also making friends that are not exactly like you. You
Mm-hmm.
have to make people feel like they can be a part of the group and that nobody is left out. Nobody is an outsider. Nobody feels like, well, I can't say how I really feel because I won't be accepted. That
Mm-hmm.
is just going to kill any bit of innovation that you're trying to develop in your organization.
Yeah, big time. So this is very important. As a leader, you should be always on the lookout for somebody who may feel they're being excluded.
Yeah.
And, include them and make sure that this norm, that everybody is however you want to do it, that no one feels left out. You got to make that part of the reality of that workplace. And sharing, which is just a little bit different, right? A
Yeah.
little different than helping, but share freely. Everybody should share what they know, what their knowledge is to the people who need it to get done, because these are always us missions.
That's
It's
right.
not about, me, but about we. And it's collective success. You've got to foster that collective success in the organization. And you can do that by sharing what you know with others to help them succeed.
Absolutely. Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. Yeah. Sharing your
Yeah.
time, sharing what
Yeah.
you know, all of that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And you don't want to make people feel like you're going to withhold information from them so that you can get ahead. You don't want to be that person. You want to make sure that you're freely sharing information because after all, a good leader is absolutely reproducing themselves in the organization. They're looking for the next person that can take their job. You should always be looking for people that you can raise up and inspire, and everybody should be doing that. Everybody should be looking at
Everybody.
how can I share what I
Yep.
know. You never want your information to just be siloed. with one person. So everything hinges on this one person. And when they're out of the office, it's total chaos. And you
Oh, they're
have
the
to have
ones who are
that one
protective
person.
about what they know because gives
Yeah.
them power. And you can't
Yeah.
have that in organizations.
You don't want that. You
That's a
absolutely
single
don't
point
want
of failure. That's a disaster. Total disaster, Tara. Total
total
disaster.
disaster. Yeah, it's a bad thing. It really is. You don't
Yeah.
want to have that one person feel like they're the only one that can ever do it. And then
Yeah.
it creates burnout for that person. But again, that single point of failure is just tragedy for your organization because eventually the person is going to get sick. They're going to want to take a
Yeah.
vacation day. They're going to want to be out of the office. And you can't have everything just hinging on one person.
Hey, did we mention that error you discovered when you looked at that doc?
We did it. Oh man, I
I don't
forgot
think we
all
did.
about
Let's
it.
go back.
We
You
got to go
know,
back. Yeah.
I created this image on Grok. It was a company picnic to create a sense of belonging. And Terry goes, "You see the error message in there?" And right over this poor guy in the wheelchair's face, there's an error message. I hadn't noticed it, but I thought that was kind of funny in retrospect. It just makes us
Yeah.
all so human.
Yeah. And the other thing, I thought it was very fitting too, because, when you don't get these things right, when you don't make sure that people feel like they belong, they don't have that sense of belonging, you're going to have some errors loading in your
Yeah,
organization.
yeah.
You're going to have some
That's an error
problems.
message in the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely a sensor that you can use. And if people feel like they don't belong, you're going to have some failures in your organization when it comes to the work. So it's
Yeah.
critical that people feel like they can be a part of the organization. They can be their whole self. They can be just like they are and come to work and not have to perform and fit in and change who they are. They can just be who they are.
Yeah. And so next week we're going to cover meaning, and that's the beginning of inspiring the remote workers. And so we'll talk about that. And we're here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock with another interesting episode. I hope you can adapt these norms into your organization, or at least use them to measure how you're doing, right? Because you could turn these into questions and get a gauge whether people actually really have, a sense of belonging and they feel safe, all of it. And you can
Yes.
do it over time. You can ask simple questions in meetings. If you've got an open, transparent culture where people are comfortable speaking up, it'll work. But so we'll be here next week, 3 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to cover meaning and give you some norms for that. So I hope you could join us.
Yes.